Germany, 1917. Amid the brutal throes of World War I, in a bleak landscape strewn with lifeless bodies, German soldiers rush through the maze of trenches, bracing themselves for the impending assault. Among them is Heinrich Gerber, a youthful soldier. As fear gnaws at him, he momentarily seeks shelter, his mind racing to devise a strategy. Yet, when push comes to shove, he charges forward, thrusting his bayonet into the chest of an enemy soldier, a sacrificial act sealing his own. Subsequently, the fallen soldiers' remains are gathered, their identification tags shattered, and their uniforms scrubbed clean, ready to clothe future recruits. Germany finds itself in the third year of the grueling war. Young Paul Boehmer, a mere 17 years old, embarks on a journey with his comrades, including Albert Kropp, Franz Müller, and Ludwig Behm. They assemble with their peers and listen to an inspiring speech from their school principal, urging them to stand up for their homeland in the hopes of returning as heroes. Equipped with uniforms and firearms, Paul is handed down Heinrich's former attire. These young men are dispatched to Paris, where the base already harbors numerous wounded soldiers. The French forces unleash a deadly gas attack, compelling the recruits to hastily don their gas masks. They navigate through the labyrinthine trenches, where Paul crosses paths with Stanislaus Kaczynski and Tjadin Stackfleet. The soldiers endure a long, tense night in the trenches, with Paul and Albert on guard duty. A shot rings out, striking Paul's helmet but sparing his life. Soon, the French intensify their barrage, forcing the Germans to seek refuge in a bunker. The onslaught escalates until the bunker crumbles, trapping and claiming the lives of some of the soldiers beneath the rubble. As the morning light breaks, Paul emerges from the wreckage of the shattered bunker. He lends a hand in the solemn task of retrieving identification tags from the fallen soldiers. A somber duty, amidst this grim undertaking, he stumbles upon the lifeless body of his comrade, Ludwig, bearing the scars of battle, an eye and a leg lost to the ravages of war. Grief overwhelms Paul, and he takes a moment to mourn the loss of his friend. A year and a half later, German official Matthias Erzberger convenes with the Supreme Army Command to address the staggering toll of soldiers lost in the past year. The gathering's purpose is to initiate negotiations for an armistice with the Allied powers. In the picturesque Champagne region of France, Paul and Kat clandestinely infiltrate a farm, making off with a plump goose. Their daring theft concludes just as the irate farmer opens fire on them. Back at their camp, they share the spoils with Albert, Franz, and Tjadin. They savor a meal of roasted goose accompanied by hearty songs and camaraderie. Later, the soldiers observe a group of French women passing by, with Franz successfully striking up a friendly encounter with one of them. He returns to the camp clutching the woman's scarf, and the men take turns inhaling its fragrance. The soldiers receive letters from their loved ones. Kat, who struggles with illiteracy, turns to Paul for help in deciphering a letter from his wife. As Paul reads, he discovers the heart-wrenching news that Kat and his wife have suffered the loss of a son. As in a vulnerable moment, Kate confides in Paul that he fears the challenging transition to civilian life once the war is finally over. Subsequently, the soldiers embark on a mission to locate 60 missing recruits. During their search, Paul and Albert stumble upon the same building where these young men had taken refuge. Kat discerns the grim truth. They met their demise because they prematurely removed their gas masks. Erzberger embarks on a journey to the forest of Compiègne, where he engages in discussions with the Allied powers regarding a ceasefire. General Friedrichs remains resolute, rejecting what he perceives as the French's unjust terms and expressing confidence in the incoming recruits. Erzberger and his colleagues convene with General Ferdinand Foch, who issues an ultimatum that the Germans have 72 hours to accept the non-negotiable conditions for the ceasefire to take effect. In the dead of night, Paul and his unit are roused from their slumber, compelled to prepare for an imminent French assault. As the morning sun rises, the battle unfurls, and the Germans engage the oncoming French forces. Paul leaps into the French trenches, taking matters into his own hands, ruthlessly dispatching several enemy soldiers. A swift retreat follows as tanks loom on the horizon. Albert, trapped in a dire predicament, attempts to surrender, but he is met with a horrifying fate set ablaze and shot. Paul is left shaken by the harrowing scenes that have played out before him. He spends a poignant moment with a wounded French soldier in his final breaths, grappling with remorse as he uncovers a photograph of the man's wife and child, beseeching forgiveness from the lifeless figure. With Kaiser Wilhelm relinquishing his throne, Erzberger receives a mandate from Field Marshal Paul von Hindenburg to accept the Allied terms. The news of the war's impending conclusion spreads among the soldiers, prompting jubilation. Paul makes his way to a field hospital, tending to the wounded, including T. Jaden, now left maimed. In a heart-wrenching turn of events, Paul and Kate attempt to offer sustenance to Jaden, only for him to take his own life, plunging a fork into his throat, while Paul and Kate desperately strive to prevent the tragedy. Erzberger and his delegation convene with Foch once more, only to encounter obstinacy on the part of the Allied powers. Reluctantly, the Germans sign the ceasefire agreement. The tidings of the armistice spread throughout the ranks. Paul and Kat venture to the farm once more, hoping to secure another goose, but their endeavor is foiled by the farmer, leading to a frantic chase. As they escape into the woods, they part ways, and a fatal gunshot from the farmer's son claims Kat's life. Paul carries Kat's lifeless body to a nearby hospital, but it's already too late. Amidst a gathering of German recruits, Friedrich addresses the troops. Desiring a final victory for Germany, he orders an assault scheduled for 10:45, instructing the men to eliminate as many French soldiers as possible. Although disheartened, the soldiers are coerced back onto the battlefield. Paul plunges into the fray, relentlessly cutting down enemy soldiers. Yet, he stumbles into a trench, locked in a fierce duel with one French soldier, only for another to emerge from the shadows, impaling him with a bayonet. As the clock strikes 11 o'clock, the war is declared over. Paul manages to take his last steps outdoors before his life slips away. The remaining German recruits collect the tags of their fallen comrades, one of whom is the young soldier whom Paul had saved earlier, clutching Franz's scarf as a poignant memento.